P.
Pack off.
Some parents cannot wait to pack their children off to bed.
Pack up.
It is getting darker and darker. Let's pack up and go home.
Pack up.
I have packed up my belongings ready to leave.
Pair off.
We have paired off, each with his partner.
Pair off with.
She wanted to pair her roommate off with her brother.
Pair up with.
Jane paired up with Mary to play tennis.
Pale at.
She paled at the sight of blood.
Pale beside.
The earthquake paled beside the one that hit Taiwan on September 21, 1999.
Palm off as.
He palmed the china teacups off as priceless antiques.
Palm off on.
He tried to palm a fake painting off on me.
Palm off with.
The salesman palmed me off with a fake fur coat.
Pamper with.
He pampers his daughter with branded clothes and fancy food.
Pan out.
Their attempt to organize a demonstration didn't pan out.
Pander to.
Some movies pander to the public taste for sex and violence.
Pant for.
He was panting for breath after running up the steps.
Paper over.
The need to defeat international terrorism did allow the two countries for a time to paper over their differences.
Parcel out to.
Before he died, he had parceled out his farms to his 5 children.
Parcel up.
Jane parceled the CDs up and sent them off.
Pardon for.
Please pardon me for interrupting you.
Pare down.
The 2-hour movie has been pared down to 1 hour.
Part from.
Sam has parted from Amy.
Part with.
I am reluctant to part with my bracelets and rings, but I am strapped for cash now.
Partake of.
Would you like to partake of some pudding?
Participate in.
Everyone in the class is expected to actively participate in sports activities.
Partition into.
The living room was partitioned into 2 rooms by a wooden wall.
Pass around to.
Please pass the biscuits around to the children.
Pass away.
My father passed away last year.
Pass by.
We lay on the lawn looking at the clouds passing by.
Pass by.
I feel that life is passing me by.
Pass down.
The custom of giving a red envelope to a child on New Year's Day is passed down from one generation to the next.
Pass for. Pass as.
He performed well enough to pass for a professional actor.
Pass off.
Her performance passed off well.
Pass off as.
That man tried to pass the painting off as an original.
Pass on to.
Can you pass the message on to Mr. Lee?
Pass out.
Several pupils passed out in the searing sun.
Pass out.
I was passing out the test papers at that time.
Pass over.
Mr. Hall was passed over for the directorship.
Pass up.
I wonder why Gary passed up the opportunity to go to Harvard University.
Patch together.
A new plan to merge with the company was quickly patched together.
Patch up.
We finally patched up our quarrel.
Pause for.
He paused for breath, almost choking with rage.
Pave with.
My grandpa paved a path with pebbles in the garden.
Pay away.
I have to pay away 1/3 of my income per month on the house.
Pay back.
I will pay him back for the trick he played on me.
Pay down.
Sherry paid $1,500 down for the new dress.
Pay for.
He tried to leave the shop without paying for the CD.
Pay off.
It is a risk to invest in the stock market, but it might just pay off for us.
Pay off.
Some workers were paid off because their work was unsatisfactory.
Pay out.
I paid out a large sum of money for that house.
Pay up.
You must pay up all these debts by the end of this year.
Peck at.
Several sparrows flew down and pecked at the breadcrumbs on the ground.
Peek at.
The children were peeking from behind the door at the guest in the living room.
Peel off.
The monkey peeled the skin off the banana.
Peel off. Peel from.
The wallpaper peeled off the wall.
Peep at.
Mrs. Britton often peeps at her neighbors from behind the curtains.
Peer at.
He was peering through the small hole at the person who was ringing the doorbell.
Pelt with.
The rioters pelted the police with stones and bottles.
Penalize for.
You will be penalized for jaywalking.
Penetrate into. Penetrate through.
The rain penetrated through the cracks on the wall.
Pension off.
Some senior teachers have been pensioned off.
Perceive as.
I have always perceived my mother as the most important person in the family.
Perish from.
A large number of people perish from hunger in Africa each year.
Perish with.
The rubber hose has perished with age.
Perk up.
Jane is perking up.
Perk up.
Won't you have a cup of coffee? It will perk you up.
Permeate through.
Rainwater will permeate through the soil.
Persevere in.
Terry keeps persevering in his effort to learn English.
Persist in.
In whatever weather, Catherine persisted in jogging in the park.
Persuade into.
My father persuaded me into going to graduate school for advanced studies.
Persuade of.
Ian was finally persuaded of my innocence.
Persuade out of.
I tried to persuade her out of associating with that man.
Pertain to.
I am only interested in the news that pertains to sports.
Pester for.
The children were pestering me for more candies.
Peter out.
The supply of water is petering out.
Petition against. Petition for.
They are petitioning against euthanasia.
Phase in.
The new system will be phased in over the next 3 years.
Phase out.
The bus service to the mountainous area is being phased out.
Pick apart.
The two brothers look so much alike that few people can pick them apart.
Pick at.
Joe never eats his dinner, he just picks at it.
Pick on.
My teacher always picks on me to answer his questions.
Pick out.
Anne picked out a good necktie to give to her father as a birthday present.
Pick up.
With the economic upturn, business is picking up.
Pick up.
My brother will pick me up at the airport.
Piece together.
The evidence has been pieced together from classified American documents.
Pierce through.
An arrow pierced through his thigh.
Pig out on.
It is impolite to pig out on food in front of your guests.
Piggyback on.
The movie piggybacked on the success of the novel from which it was adapted.
Pin down to.
We should pin the politician down to his promise.
Pin down.
The reasons for juvenile crime are hard to pin down.
Pinch off.
She pinched the dead flowers off.
Pine away.
After a serious illness, he pined away.
Pine for.
I am still pining for my homeland even though I have lived in America for several years.
Piss off.
The way he talks to me really pisses me off.
Pitch in.
If every one of us pitches in, we'll soon get the job done.
Plague with.
Don't plague me with silly questions all the time.
Plaster with.
That actress's face was plastered with cosmetics.
Play down.
Robert tends to play down his own mistakes.
Play off against.
Jane often plays one colleague off against another.
Play on.
The writer made a lot of money by playing on the public's taste for erotic stories.
Play out.
This scenario is playing out in real life.
Play out.
You are free to play out your fantasies.
Play up.
Salespeople always play up the good qualities of a product and fail to mention its disadvantages.
Play up to.
Alice is always playing up to her father in order to get more pocket money.
Plead with for.
She wept and pleaded with her teacher for forgiveness.
Plot with against.
The Prime Minister was found plotting with some generals against the king.
Plow through.
We are plowing through the deep snow.
Pluck at.
Tom plucked at his mother's skirt when they were crossing the street.
Plump for.
Finally, we plumped for Jane.
Plunge into.
Gloria boldly plunged her hands into the hot water.
Plunge to.
The stock market index plunged to a new low.
Ply for.
A number of taxi drivers are plying for business on the street.
Poach from.
It's immoral to poach ideas from others.
Point at.
Jack pointed his gun at the bird in the tree.
Point at. Point to.
He pointed to a chair, signaling to us to sit down.
Point out.
My English teacher pointed out the mistakes in my composition.
Point to.
All the evidence pointed to her guilt.
Poke at.
Sam was poking at the sand with a stick.
Poke into.
I hate anyone poking into my private life.
Poke through.
Shirley poked her head through the window.
Polish off.
That guy polished off his mistress.
Polish up.
Polish up the floor before our guests come.
Pollute with.
That factory polluted our rivers with chemical waste.
Ponder on. Ponder over.
I pondered over the whole incident, unable to figure out how it happened.
Pontificate about. Pontificate on. pontificate over.
He is always pontificating about education.
Pop up.
He popped up on television in army fatigues and with an AK-47, calling himself a freedom fighter.
Pour over.
He is poring over the contract, searching for any unfair clause.
Portray as.
King Arthur was often portrayed as a brave knight.
Pose as.
That man posed as a beggar.
Pose for.
After the wedding, we all posed for a photograph.
Pound on.
Someone is pounding on the door.
Pound with.
His heart pounded with excitement when he saw the girl he loved.
Pour into.
Please pour some water into my glass.
Praise as.
His novel was praised as the best of the year.
Praise for.
The actor was praised for his outstanding performance on the stage.
Pray to for.
Kelly prayed to God for her husband's safety.
Preach to on.
The priest preached a sermon to the crowd on the need for fidelity.
Precipitate into.
The blackout precipitated the city into turmoil.
Preclude from.
Age alone will not preclude him from running a marathon.
Predicate on.
The estate agency's expansion was predicated on the prediction that sales would continue rising.
Predominate over.
Female teachers predominate over male teachers nearly in every school.
Prefer to.
I prefer walking in the woods to cycling along the beach.
Prejudice against.
The newspaper's criticism of Mr. Lee might prejudice the voters against him.
Prepare for.
I'm preparing for the test.
Prepare for.
The teacher is preparing their students for the college entrance examination.
Prepare for.
My mother is preparing a meal for us.
Prescribe for.
The doctor prescribed some aspirins for my headache.
Present oneself for.
You are required to present yourself for the meeting.
Present to.
I was presented to the president last week.
Present to.
The research team decided to present the result of their investigation to the committee next Monday.
Preserve as.
The temple is preserved as a tourist attraction.
Preserve for.
His paintings are preserved for future generations.
Preserve from.
In the past, people used salt and spices to preserve meat from being rotten.
Preside over.
Mr. Lee will preside over the meeting.
Press against.
The little boy pressed his nose against the shop window to have a better look at the toy he liked.
Press for.
The workers are pressing for a pay raise.
Press for.
I am pressing Paul for repayment of debt.
Press on with.
We must press on with our plan to beef up production.
Pressure into.
My parents pressured me into going to medical school.
Presume on.
Don't presume on my generosity by asking for money all the time.
Prevail over.
Justice prevailed over evil in the end.
Prevent from.
The floods caused by the typhoon prevented him from attending school.
Prey on. Prey upon.
Cats prey on mice.
Pride oneself on.
He prided himself on being accepted into Harvard University.
Probe into.
The police are probing into the murder.
Proceed against over.
I have decided to proceed against that woman.
Proceed from.
All evils proceed from greed.
Proceed with.
The lawyer paused to consult her notes and then proceeded with her questions.
Procrastinate over.
He procrastinated over the contract in order to force the house owner to mark his house down.
Procure from.
Like Japan, Taiwan has to procure oil from abroad.
Prod into.
A teacher needs something to prod his students into studying harder.
Profit from.
We can certainly profit from other people's mistakes and avoid making them ourselves.
Prohibit from.
Students are prohibited from smoking and gambling.
Project oneself as.
Mr. Black is trying to project himself as an honest politician.
Project into.
They projected a satellite into space.
Project on. Project onto.
You mustn't project your guilt onto me.
Project onto. Project on.
During his speech, he projected many slides onto the screen to help illustrate his points.
Promote from to.
Mrs. Black was promoted from a branch manager to the general manager in the parent company.
Prop up.
The government should stop propping up state-run enterprises.
Propel into.
Johnson was propelled into the presidency after President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963.
Propose for.
Mr. Lee proposed Miss Chen for the position of marketing manager.
Propose to.
Daniel proposed to his girlfriend on Valentine's Day.
Prosecute for.
David was prosecuted for murder.
Prospect for.
Many people trekked across the desert to prospect for oil.
Protect against.
Paint will help protect against rusting.
Protect from. Protect against.
He raised his arms to protect his face from the blow.
Protest against. Protest at. Protest about.
They protested strongly against the government's new housing policy.
Provide for.
The hotel can provide accommodations for 500 guests.
Provide with.
The government provided the typhoon victims with food and drinks.
Provoke into.
The decision to build an incinerator in the village provoked the villagers into rioting.
Prowl around.
Several cats prowled around the garbage cans all day.
Pry into.
Paparazzi like to pry into the affairs of public figures.
Puff at. Puff on.
I saw Mike puffing at his pipe on the doorstep.
Pull back.
The cat pulled back in terror as the dog jumped at it.
Pull back from.
Israel decided to pull back its forces from Lebanon.
Pull down.
They pulled down the old bridge.
Pull in.
The train pulled in and all the passengers got off.
Pull off.
We pulled off the road to get some food and stretch our legs.
Pull off.
They have decided to buy 5,000 copies of this new book. How did you pull off this big deal?
Pull oneself together.
I pulled together information from several sources in preparing for the speech.
Pull out of.
The train was pulling out of the station.
Pull out of.
American forces will be pulled out of this war-ravaged country.
Pull over.
I pulled my car over to the side to let a truck pass.
Pull through.
The doctor assured me that my father would pull through his illness.
Pull through.
The doctor assured me that he could pull my father through his serious illness.
Pull under.
The heavy debt load has pulled David under.
Pull up.
The car pulled up when the light turned red.
Pull up.
The driver pulled the bus up at a red light.
Punch in.
The workers are supposed to punch in by 9 o'clock.
Punch out.
We punch out at 6 o'clock.
Punish by.
Mr. White punished his son by grounding him.
Punish for.
His mother punished him for his rudeness.
Punish with.
I punished that guy with punches in the stomach.
Purchase from.
I purchased the used car from my friend.
Purge oneself of.
He tried hard to purge his mind of hatred.
Purge of.
The new party chairman purged his party of mavericks.
Push about. Push around.
I hate to be pushed around.
Push ahead with.
They are determined to push ahead with the project.
Push for.
The workers are pushing for a pay raise.
Push into.
His father is pushing him into studying law.
Push on.
You shouldn't try to push your belief on anyone.
Push through.
We must push the sunshine bill through Congress.
Put across to.
I tried hard to put my message across to my students.
Put aside.
I have to put a little money aside for a trip to my hometown.
Put away.
If found guilty, he will be put away for life.
Put before.
Some politicians always put their own interests before national security.
Put down.
The riot police was called in to put down the riot.
Put forward.
I put forward the plan, but it was turned down.
Put off.
The idea of moving house again put me off.
Put off.
The game has been put off till next week.
Put on.
Dad can't be serious about what he said. He must be putting you on.
Put on.
Jane has put on at least 10 pounds recently.
Put out.
The doctor put Amy out for a few hours.
Put out.
The firefighters put the fire out in half an hour.
Put over.
The program is intended to help you put over your ideas more effectively.
Put through.
Operator, can you put me through to this number?
Put through.
We put the deal through very quickly.
Put together.
I managed to put the bike together properly by following the directions.
Put under.
When the patient is put under, the operation will begin.
Put up.
As a gesture of goodwill, I put my distant relative up in my home for the night.
Put up.
The workers are tearing down the condemned building in order to put up a new one.
Put up with.
I cannot put up with any noise while I am studying.
Puzzle out.
I cannot puzzle out a way to flee.
Puzzle over.
You don't need to waste effort puzzling over her motive for standing you up.